And we are at 7 o'clock.
Welcome everyone to this evening's The Reckoning. I'm Christina M. Johnson of Testimony Publishers, LLC, and I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for your time this evening. First and foremost, because of the importance and the significance of tonight, I thought it would be necessary to introduce Dr. Uzziah Harris, first and foremost, because he is the visionary and host of this evening's event. Hello, Dr. Uzziah, how are you?
This is Christina. How are you doing? Absolute pleasure. Ready for tonight. Thank you so very much for all of your work in gathering us here tonight.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for greeting the attendees. I see some wonderful, wonderful names here, beautiful faces. Mr. Jason Ford, thank you for joining us. I do not know the pronunciation of this name, so forgive me, but Miss Tessima, thank you so much for joining us. Miss Janae Wilson, Mr. Charles Jameson, Miss Natalie Marco Sidbury. Thank you so much. Mrs. Jennifer Harris, thank you all so much for joining us. Now let's get into a little bit about Mr. Dr. Pastor, evangelist, speaker, international best-selling author, Dr. Uzziah Harris. And then we'll get into introducing the very special guest panelists that we have for this evening as well. Now, the bio is very, very extensive. So as your moderator, I have to moderate time. So I am going to just say a little bit. So I'm going to share just a little bit about Dr. Uzziah before I bring him to the virtual stage to officially greet you all and say a few words before we begin tonight's event, Community Town Hall. So Dr. Uzziah Anthony Harris, the very name embodies the strength of God, because that's what it means literally. He is tirelessly invested in the lives of individuals and communities. He has left just such an awesome mark on the Black American cultural community. And he's been a human rights advocate as well. His journey began as a dedicated middle school teacher in Richmond, Virginia during the late 1990s, where he first discovered his passion for empowering others. Dr. Harris is a multi-talented individual, also holding titles of a certified life coach, an ordained minister. He has had a great commitment as far as community engagement. He's been a driving force behind different endeavors within the community to help educate and empower its citizens and residents. Also, he has a PhD, master's, the list goes on and on. So without further ado, Dr. Uzziah, please greet the audience, let them know a little bit about what you want them to know about you, and let's get started with this amazing community town hall.
I want to say welcome to everybody and thank every single one of you for joining. I think it's best encapsulated by if I just read something very brief for you that is actually an excerpt from this particular book. I am, without apology, a Black man. Now, that's not all I am by any stretch. And that's not primarily who I am, but that is a big part of who I am. And I believe that as Black and brown people in this country, that our struggles are particularly unique. Not only that they are particularly unique, but they are particularly underserved, particularly largely ignored and undervalued. And I believe it is so to the detriment of this country. Now, there is a history surrounding that. We all know that. Most of us at least know it and in part. But my purpose for driving us all to the table this morning is the understanding that we cannot continue to allow it to be the wedge that it is. If we want this country to be what it's supposed to be, then this country has to step forward and do what we are supposed to do as it relates to race in this country. If not, we are going to face, as we have had the divine favor, we are going to face divine judgment. That's what the book Trial by Fire is all about. And so my prayer, my hope is that we gather in this space with all of the wisdom, the talents that we have, that we listen to different perspectives, but that we set our mind on saying to the world, to the country, to the world, to our respective communities, that we are going to do everything we possibly can to make sure that this issue does not continue to pervade in this society. We've got different ages on this particular call tonight. When you look around, you've got different experiences. We've got different races on this particular call tonight. And I hope you understand that all of us are affected by the issue of race in the United States. All of us can do something about it. None of us can do anything about it, however, singularly more so than we can do collectively. So my hope is tonight we are looking for collective action. We want to move forward. We want to get past the lip service, and we want to do our part in making that happen. Okay. All right. So the particular passage that I'm going to read is actually something entitled A Day in the Life. And I think once again, it encapsulates the experiences that many of us face. And I hope that it will start and provide fodder for discussion for tonight. I woke up like this: melanin powered and God-fearing, America's public enemy, number one. They hate me, but they're all kin to me, as I was not only America's first generation, but the world's. As I move to the bathroom, I prepare myself for the day. I can almost anticipate the barrage, the shower of hate coming down upon me, from the rising of the sun until the going down of the same. May we be cleansed of the stain and the stench of bigotry. Its pungency has long been an offense to my nostrils. It's breakfast time. Where can I eat? What can I eat? Truth does a body good, does it not? I'm grown now, so you can't force feed me misguided media misrepresentations of my past, my present, or my future. You can't feed me the foolishness about progress when my life expectancy is about 5 years less than my Anglo-Saxon brothers and 10 years less than my Asian brothers. Only healthy eating for me from here on out. Give me a bowl of self-determination, a glass of equity. Keep your feigned equality. Add me a side of real unity, and I'll be okay all day long. No killers, no fillers posed as sweets, no thank you. The traffic is crazy. How do I navigate through the nightmare of systematic oppression and injustice? The NAACP itself says I'm 5 times more likely to be incarcerated and 54% more likely to be killed by police when unarmed and speeding to beat the light. But to be the light also draws unwanted attention. Maybe I should walk to work. So it takes me twice as long to get to work. I mean, to get to work, as my unemployment rate is about 160% that of the nation as a whole. Maybe that's why we stay in the hole. Maybe it's by design, to keep us in the pit, to keep us in the dark. Come on here, Joseph. People couldn't take advantage of us when we had our own. And history reinforces this. The entire planet has benefited from Black industriousness and the fleecing of the African continent. Maybe this is why the United Nations itself can't speak out on this one. Can you say condone genocide? And you call me lazy. Thieves. I digress. Yeah, I put in a good day's work, but I'm not necessarily rewarded with a good day's pay because my house only makes 10% what my neighbor's house makes. I used to be 3/5, 60% of a human. This is a 50% decrease. I'd say that's the real Great Recession. I only wish I could take a recess from this perpetual regress. Fatigued, I begin to wind down, looking for entertainment only to see white governors painted in Black faces. His life now a media circus. I turned the channel because Stephen King's It showed me not to mess with clowns. Don't think that's funny? Well, then you tell those Dixiecrats, I'm sorry, Democrats, that Stephen King, not to be confused with Martin King, Republicans, to stop taking me for a joke. Finally, I'm at the end of my day. I will sit back at home, kick back, relaxed, and say, isn't this great again? Even if I'm being facetious, and I am, I still have to prepare to go through the same thing again tomorrow. I don't want to think about it, so off to sleep I go, talking about I have a dream, or is it a nightmare? Good night, America. Looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow and experiencing yet another day in the life.
Wow.
That's where we are.
Wow. We need this chat blowing up. If you could unmute, give a hand clap, or in the chat, we need some fire emojis, because they hate me, but they are kin to me. Dr. Uzziah, what you are touching on, we are getting ready to speak to this. Let's get our guest panelists involved in this conversation. So thank you to those of you who have already joined us, those of you that are coming in now. Let me introduce our guest panelists with us so that we can begin this dialogue for tonight. Beginning with Dr. Gigi. I'd like to introduce you first as our one of our guest panelists for tonight, because of the work that you've done in the community. Your experience spans many decades. You have a very in-depth background, using your not only your educational background but also cultural background, because not only are you half Brazilian, you've also lived for a decade in South Africa. So you have so much depth to add. Please introduce yourself to our attendees this evening and let them know a little bit about yourself.
My dear family, it is an absolute honor to be with you this evening, and to be just counted in the number among this family that's gathered. So thank you for being here and having us. I am first and foremost the adoptive mom of Jericho and Judah. Before anything else, that's who I am. I am also a healing-centered, anti-racist facilitator, writer, speaker, artist, activist, and cultural architect. So I have a doctorate in healing racial trauma from Howard University School of Divinity, and then I'm a certified historical trauma specialist. And really my specialty, like if you had to say what my niche is, it is co-creating, decolonizing, liberative, embodied, beloved communities that heal the soul wound of racial trauma and mobilize for a more just society. That's really the core of who I am. I integrate theology, neuroscience, and collective healing to create communities where we heal so that we can be more effective in our mobilizing to bring actual, real, measurable change.
Thank you so much for that. You also have, within the next couple of days, an e-manual that's coming out. So I'd like to mention that very quickly, just to keep it in the back of our attendees' minds, and then I'll remind them a little bit later on as well. Releasing over the next couple of days is Introduction to Healing Racial Trauma, an e-manual for followers of Brown Jesus. So I'll pause and let them marinate on that for a minute. Let me introduce our next guest panelist, Miss Reaves. So Miss Brianna, you have a podcast that is stepping on some toes, that's informing people about what's going on, but is very, very informative for people inside and outside of the Black American community. Black Girl at a PWI. And for any of the attendees who are not aware, PWI means predominantly white institution. So Miss Brianna, you are currently a dual master's student. You have not only the first season of the podcast, but you also have the second season that's available on Apple podcast as well. You have majored in sociology, theology, and the list goes on and on as well. So being one of the younger millennial minds here with us, share a little bit of your wisdom and tell the attendees a little bit about what you want them to know.
Sure. So I like to pride myself on being a zillennial. So I'm like the oldest Z, but like not a millennial. All right. So I'm like old Z, tail end a millennial. I have some millennial folks on here, and I know that they would not confidently claim me. And that's okay. But hello, everyone. Hello, beautiful people, the folks who are on here. I'm Brianna Simone Reaves. I like to say, right, we love you anyhow, correct. I like to say that I'm everybody's multi-talented bestie. So Black girl at a PWI, literally cultivated out of being a Black woman growing up and being raised in predominantly white spaces. And a lot of folks think that that just means non-HBCU, but it means America is a predominantly white space. Europe is a predominantly white space, right? And the list goes on. Your workplace is more than likely a predominantly white space. And so even going as far as saying white supremacy is a predominantly white space. So even institutions of thought or institutions of belief are undoubtedly, right, these PWIs. And so that's much of my work, podcasting, speaking to these issues. I'm a grassroots organizer at heart. I'm an organizer. I love the people. And so doing any work related to that, getting a degree in theological studies, international peace and conflict resolution with the concentration in reconciliation and justice, on top of being a storyteller. So she creates vision and telling stories of liberation, telling stories of the memories that are so core to us, while also doing work within the NAACP and She Who Hears and ministry and all the other many things. So honored to be here. Definitely honored for this conversation as we talk about liberation, the reality of it in America, and what it means for our communities and for this country to really change and be centered on justice. So thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much, Ms.